Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
Hey, what's up, my woods people? I'm Tyler Jones, and this is the Backcountry mini-series from the Element Podcast. Casey, fill them in.
Since we are diving headfirst into the backcountry hunting this season, we decided to call in some help and talk to some experts that know how to crush it in the backcountry.
So make sure and subscribe, and if this is helpful, we'd love for you guys to give us a 5-star rating and an iTunes review.
Absolutely. Now let's get into it because I still have a lot of Mountain House flavors to try before September gets here.
What's going on, everybody? Real quick before we start this episode of the Backcountry series, we are doing a giveaway, and I wanted to let you know in case you hadn't heard, because it is an appreciation for 100,000 downloads, and there are some great things that we're giving away. Casey, what does that include?
A lot of stuff, Tyler. First and foremost, we're giving away some Onyx Premium memberships, some awesome apparel, and a pair of Vortex Diamondback 10x42 binoculars. But that's not it. If we get 100 reviews before we return from the Gila, we're going to give away a trail camera as well.
Man, that's a lot of good stuff.
A good trail camera, too.
Yeah,
Not one of the cheapos. A good one.
Yeah, this ain't off the Walmart shelves or nothing here. The way you win that is you would give a review on what is known as, I guess, iTunes/Apple Podcasts. I don't know, but they're phasing out iTunes. But it's the same thing. Apple Podcasts, you go to your podcast app, you give us a review. 5 stars, say something good, and we will. You'll be in the running for it from the beginning of reviews all the way till the last one. Which the last one is going to be sometime while we're basically on the Gila trip. So when we get back from the Gila trip, towards the end of September is when we're going to pick the winner, and the winner will have a chance to get binos, hopefully by the time deer season starts. So pretty good deal. Just go give us a review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the downloads, guys, and let's move on to the Backcountry series.
All right, today on the show, we have got Katelyn Berman. She is an old college buddy of mine, and she is an outdoor enthusiast and all around goes hard in the backcountry. Katelyn, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
You are welcome. I'm excited to talk. We actually haven't seen each other face to face in probably 9 or 10 years. I don't know, but
I think it is.
Yeah.
It's up on a decade.
You've been, we're getting old. My gosh. But you're one of my favorite social media follows, and it's just been cool to see you blossom and start doing what you love to do and pursue your passions pretty much in everything you do in life. And it's just fun to see people go and do awesome stuff. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do on a daily basis, and then kind of just maybe some background on how life has taken you kind of across the country?
Yeah, sure. So right now my daily work looks like I run a climbing gym here in Sun Valley, Idaho. And so that's a 9-to-5 type situation for me. Paid on call, volunteer firefighter, and EMT. But I'm super fortunate to be able to live in just the most gorgeous Idaho mountains. And it's really incorporated into the culture of the community that I live in to just get out and get after it. So I do a fair amount of horse packing and long distance horseback riding. as well as climbing and mountain biking, and it just transitions with the seasons. Once the snow starts to fall, I transition to skiing and kind of getting out in the backcountry that way on 2 planks, and kind of climb all year round with a little bit of ice climbing as well. So,
Whoa.
So it just kind of, my sport is dictated by the season. And I kind of made my way out here after college. I came from Texas, kind of made a little bit of a pit stop transition in Colorado. And then I kind of kept moving west. I met my husband in Colorado, and he's originally from this area in Idaho. And so just kept on going, and I'm pretty psyched where I am now.
Yeah, I would be too. It looks pretty amazing. And Idaho is a place I've never made it to yet. I've got family up in Coeur d'Alene. I always say that I need to go just have an excuse to go visit, right? Because it's just it seems like an awesome place to be. How did you find like your passion for the West? And I'm assuming that like for some reason you decided to go to Colorado after college. It wasn't just like a whim, right?
Right. Yeah. So actually during college, I worked in Colorado as a backpacking guide in the 14ers. And I've always been just I would actually go so far as to say an extreme outdoor enthusiast, and just trying to find more access to more public land and learn more skills and other ways to access the backcountry. Mm-hmm. And I just found that the West tends to be a little bit more conducive to be able to push those boundaries. There's just not a ton of public land in Texas.
There's not.
So I think that was one of my my family traveled to Colorado kind of regularly. And then the more avenues I took, the more new paths I found from there. And that kind of just building effect sent me farther into the mountains. And now I live pretty, according to some people, pretty remotely. It's pretty hard to get to Sun Valley if you think of it from modern standards.
Yeah, we had to get to Bozeman last summer, and that seemed pretty difficult enough. So, you start talking about places that are quite a ways from even like a secondary airport, and you're getting pretty remote for lower 48 standards. So that's cool. That's a cool place to be. You had a pretty big conservation kind of event happen a few years back that it kind of involved that backcountry horse riding you were talking about. Can you tell us a little bit about Ride for Red?
Yeah, so Ride for Red was a 900-plus mile journey following the salmon run from the ocean to kind of my back door here in Stanley, Idaho. Stanley, Redfish Lake specifically, is the farthest inland that migrating salmon go to spawn. And so 2 friends and I, Kat Cannell and MJ Wright, we had a pack string of 7 horses, and we rode from Astoria, Oregon to Stanley. That took us about 2 months. And the entire time we were really focusing on bringing awareness and education and advocacy for wild salmon and steelhead, because their numbers are just drastically diminishing. And so we felt that horses are pretty approachable. People are curious while you're riding your horse through downtown Portland. Like, that doesn't belong there. So we were able to field a lot of questions, and where people came and approached us more so than, say, if we were on a bike for a long distance type travel. So it was an incredible journey, and definitely the longest I've ever packed a horse, for sure.
No, that's crazy. Awesome. That's so cool. So I have so many questions. We probably could just do a whole podcast on that another time. But, like, is that something that you're accustomed to doing, kind of long distance stuff like that with horses in the backcountry, or was that kind of a new thing?
No, I would say that was definitely new for me. I had done some outfitting as far as working for a horse outfitter here in the mountains of Idaho, but all of that was much smaller as far as scale, and that's kind of where I got my initial skills. And then Kat on the ride, she had some past experience with long distance trip, but as far as going that far, even 2 weeks worth of packing would have been a next step for me. So that was a big jump, and a lot of learning happened.
Sure. So you're quickly becoming one of my new idols. But I have to ask you, because for this series that we're doing, we really haven't had anybody talk about horses. So, like, logistically, what are the advantages of having a horse? Which I can think of a few maybe off the top of my head, but then, like, also what are maybe the disadvantages or the things you have to really think about, and that may kind of cost you time or even just energy in the backcountry dealing with horses?
Oh man. Well, I think a huge advantage of horses, one, is just their carrying capacity. So they're a huge advantage for hunters. And something I'm going to be using for hunting is I'm kind of coming up into this elk hunting and learning. I just started bow hunting this past year.
Right. Cool.
And their ability, horses and mules specifically more, I would say, they can handle rough country, and you can access places with them that you couldn't on a four-wheeler or a truck or anywhere else. Even so, then the carrying capacity, they can obviously carry more than we as humans can. I would say that's their major thumbs up. Other than I just have this instinctual love for horses. I like having them with me. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that's where the pluses end. They're a lot of work.
Yeah.
To take horses into the backcountry, they require a lot of care. And so just from a feed, their tack, what they will need if they're hurt, thinking about shoes, if they lose a shoe, or do you have the equipment to get it back on, or they require a lot. And they don't actually have, if you have a down tree on a run out cliffside, you may not have options, because we have saws that we carry, and we can saw through. I mean, if we're feeling super ambitious, maybe like a 12-inch circumference log. But some of these trees that come down here during the winter season are huge. Mm-hmm. And if we come up on that, we could have to backtrack miles. Yeah. And horses they're not very fast either. Yeah. In good terrain, we can travel about 3 miles per hour. And so there are a lot of benefits to having them as far as access and carrying, but you definitely need to go in with some anticipation of everything that could go wrong. Otherwise, you're going to be carrying a lot without a horse. Right.
Yeah. I in 2017, I was in northern British Columbia on a sheep hunt with horses, and I've ridden a horse one time before, which is crazy. Technically I'm pretty much a country boy, but like, I'm just not a farm guy. You know what I mean? I just grew up chasing hogs and that kind of thing instead of, we just didn't have cattle, or whatever. So horses weren't really a part of my life growing up. And so like I get off on this horse in the backcountry of British Columbia, and like every limb threatens to just take me off this horse. You know what I mean? Like he has no regard for the fact that there's a 200-pound human on his back, And so like there's definitely there were some struggles that I saw, and we had a dude, our guide was just like, man, he could just tie any knot and do anything you could imagine with a horse. I mean, he was a for sure cowboy pro, and that was definitely helpful. But I was like, the next year they went on the guy that I was videoing for, he went on this a stone sheep hunt again, because we didn't tag out that year. And they did 10 miles into the backcountry by foot in similar terrain, but a little more like up above tree line. And so I was just like, man, I just kind of feel like what we did, we could have done on foot, but there was definitely like some big hills and stuff that I was like, I'm kind of thankful I can just lean forward on this horse and go, So I totally. I see that as like, and the ability also for like you said, with the carrying capacity, you have such an ability to carry like a canvas tent or something that's really comfortable, and like stove supplies and that kind of thing. But I mean, what do you need a big pack on a horse trip? And if not, have you ever been on just a backcountry trip where you needed a good pack, and what does that look like for you?
Well, horse, the saddles that I use, and one other thing I should tack on to the advantages of horses is, here in Idaho and much else of the West, we have a lot of designated wilderness. And so horses mules too, are a great way to access, that wilderness area, because you can't use any motorized or mechanical advantage. Mm-hmm. So you can set up some pretty awesome base camps that way. But as far as the horses and packing, I use a Decker saddle and manties, kind of more of a traditional style. And, but as far as I do also a fair amount without the horses as well. And, most of that would be mountaineering based. And for packs for that, I have this super old school Osprey pack that's just been working for years. And, I actually had a raccoon chew through part of the hip belt, and it's still working great. So, But I do, I use that's a 65 liter, and I probably more so use a 42 liter made by Black Diamond. What I really like about it is it has the hip belt is separately mounted, so there's flexion built into the hip belt itself. So there's less rigidity in the entire pack system, which I found to be pretty darn helpful. Is that the direction you were thinking as far as what you were asking?
Sure, yeah. So is that pack, you say it's kind of flexible. It's still a frame pack though, right?
It's an internally framed pack, so it has two stays on the inside, but there's no like external frame to it as you would see potentially on like a hunting pack. Because I need to be a little bit more nimble in like close rock areas for that purpose.
Yeah. So as you transition more into like the hunting side of things, are you going to swap packs and look for something a little bit different, or are you going to try to roll with that pack and see how it treats you?
No, I definitely am going to look for something different.
Yeah.
I'm for better or for worse, I'm a kind of gal that like matches each activity with its own thing.
Yeah.
So like I have a different pack for skiing, and I have a different pack for climbing. And this past year, I didn't carry a pack for packing out any animals or game because I was planning on using the horses, and so I just had a normal pack for my personal equipment. For that, I would just use like a normal 30 liter, just light, here we go type thing.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to do a little bit more exploring. I'm fortunate here to have some mentors for hunting that are going to help guide me in the right way for that. But I don't have one in particular that I'm looking at for this coming season.
Yeah, cool. We're kind of in the same boat where I've done a ton of day packing, where you just kind of go back to base camp at the truck or whatever. But this, you're talking about wilderness earlier. We are going to be hunting a wilderness area there in New Mexico this fall. And that's kind of the whole premise of this series that we're doing, is kind of learning how to do that overnight backpacking kind of thing, and learning how to kind of be sufficient with what you have on your back. And, we're kind of doing the same thing where we're keeping our options open, really trying to understand what's going to work best, and kind of exhausting our resources of people and trying to understand what everybody uses, because honestly, you can look at stat sheets all day, but like, if you talk to somebody who's real and who's been out there and done it, like what they use is going to matter a whole lot more than, talking about ounces or rigidity or whatever it might be. But, so you spend a ton of time in the backcountry, and you were talking about how you're a backpacking guide in Colorado. So I'm sure that you've seen plenty of mistakes by dummies like Tyler and I, or I'll just speak for myself, like me. Tyler's pretty smart, just different things. For instance, I carried, like one of the half-gallon sizes of peanut butter in my backpack one time on an overnight.
I thought it was a 5-gallon.
It was a big one.
Oh my gosh!
I never even opened it. And it was like 4 pounds of peanut butter, so that was stupid. And for a 2-night trip, But anyways, trying to really
we call that training weight.
Training weight. Yeah, I needed to really train going to the bottom of the Black Canyon. That was a good idea. But so there's tons of those little mistakes like that. But whenever like you see people, make a mistake with food or water or whatever it is, what does that look like? Like, what's the most common mistakes with those kind of things?
Well, I think it just starts, the more, this probably goes without saying, but just the more you do it, the more experience you find out what works for you. Because even my systems are different than, my climbing partners, for example. We just have different ways of working with it. I think that a common mistake, one, at least just a pet peeve, is don't put anything on the outside of your pack. It's so easy to lose whatever it is you have on the outside of your pack, whether that be an extra pair of shoes or your whatever it is, water bottle. I've seen people only bring one water bottle and then attach it to the outside of their pack. They tripped and it just hit their pack right, and they just lost their only water container for the rest of the week.
Oh, not good.
And then I just think that also just being very conscious of the efficiency of your system. And so a company that I've really fallen in love with recently is Sea to Summit. They make some really lightweight, very compactable to where I can take that 42 liter pack I was telling you about, and I can carry a sleeping bag, pad, my clothes, everything that I need, and I can be out for 5 days. And comparatively, that's a pretty small pack. So keeping that weight down. And then I think the other biggest mistake people made is with their clothing and underestimating their socks, and two, the shoes that they choose. You can just ruin your trip so fast with a bad pair of shoes and a bad pair of socks. And so that's something that those good socks are expensive too. So it's hard to make that investment, but it is, if that $25 is going to make or break your week that you've been planning for months, and then it's worth it to me. So, those are some of the ones that I've seen and try to avoid.
Yeah, well, good tips there. And I definitely think we probably want to elaborate a little bit on some of those, especially you mentioned that it kind of seemed like you might be the type of person that takes 2 water bottles or 2 water containers. Is that the case?
Yeah. So I usually carry a bladder, like a Camelback type bladder, just so I make sure that I stay hydrated without having to take my pack off, or it's easy for me to just be focused on what I'm doing and forget to stay hydrated. So I'll take a bladder, and that's all season. If I'm in the winter, I use an insulated tube so it doesn't freeze in the tube. And then I always, no matter what, carry a separate way to haul water. So whether that's a Nalgene bottle or a roll-up platypus, just because if my Camelback springs a leak, I don't want to be just completely out of luck. And the other thing is, I find a hard vessel such as a Camelback is really a lot easier and conducive for cooking. It's hard to pour water in and out of a Camelback bladder, and so you end up losing water when you don't mean to. And it's also easier to filter into a hard container. So I use a Katelyn filter that has a pre-fit insert. And so it just fits so perfectly into my Nalgene that I'll fill that up first, and not waste my time with a spilt something, and just put it into the bladder from there. So I do always carry at least 2 options for carrying water. For
sure. And are you kind of gathering as much water as you can when you have a chance, and kind of making sure that you ration it and save it for later?
It depends on what I know of my water access points going forward. If I know that I am approaching a place where I'm planning on camping next to water, then I won't necessarily be at full capacity approaching that day. But if I'm unsure, then some people aren't that type of person, but I am the type of person to over carry water because I'm unsure of where I'm going. So it's heavy. And so some people, and that's another mistake I've seen, is people think they're out and like they're anticipating getting to their end result, and then you come up on a microburst or whatever the case is, and they're out of water, and that really screws your next 12 hours of trying to problem solve. And so I'm always I trend towards more over prepared than cutting weight.
Yeah, for sure. I would much rather carry 50 pounds with, an extra half gallon of water as opposed to 40 pounds with only 2 liters. It's just, water's something I can't do without. And I don't know if it's just because I grew up in the South and you just got to drink a lot, I don't know. But,
sure.
And, hydration is important no matter where you're at. But you also mentioned, how like wrong socks or wrong footwear can really wreck your trip. And I believe that. So, what are you doing footwear wise? Both. Let's talk about sock, like preparation, how many pairs you carry, what kind you wear, and then also just like what do you look for in a really good boot? What do you wear?
So sock wise, depending on there's so many depending, but typically I bring a pair for every day. Yeah. So I'll change socks every day. And then I also, I have a pair of what I call sacred socks, and those sacred socks live in my sleeping bag, and I never wear them for anything where they will get sweaty.
Sacred socks.
They purely stay in my sleeping bag. And I don't even get out and walk around camp in the morning with them on. They stay there.
Yeah.
And that is the reason for that is, you actually can evaporate a lot of moisture through your sleeping bag. It's kind of crazy how that happens. You wouldn't think it would, but it is a really great way to just make sure your feet have the recovery time, especially if they're wet from sweat or walking in creeks or whatever the case was. Wet feet can be enemy number one, so you want to be able to get those dry at night. And footwear wise, I am a little bit non-traditional in especially horse packing land in that I wear a high-topped, lightweight hiking boot. So the one that I've been recently wearing is the Adidas Terex, and I prefer a high top for ankle protection. I have bad experience with rolled ankles, so I sacrifice that for it. I know a lot of people are just like a all-terrain type shoe, tennis shoe type. But these are super lightweight. I can't tell you like ounces, but they're amazing. So I do trend away from like that Gore-Tex leather. And I have it's a Gore-Tex mesh,
Yeah.
which sounds silly. And then in the winter, for hunting and packing, I use this company called Sneeze, and they are absolutely amazing. They're made in Montana, and you can get them in different heights. That is a full leather boot, and I am absolutely in love with that pair of boots. They keep my feet warm, and I can ride and walk in them. It's pretty great.
Yeah. Cool. So just quickly for clarity, the sacred socks are only for wearing at night while you sleep. Is that right?
Yep. They never leave my sleeping bag.
Okay. Cool.
Do you leave them, do you roll them up in your bag at night, or do you actually,
Yeah.
Yep. So as soon as I spin out and I'm getting my coffee, I put my next pair of working socks on for the day. Sacred socks come off, and they just get stuffed into the bottom of my sleeping bag.
Cool. So on that note, what does your sleeping system look like? Your bag, your pad, your tent, what does all that look like?
I have a couple options. I think my most go-to is I use tent-wise. I use oh my gosh, I'm going to totally blank on it. It's made by Black Diamond. It's super popular. It's a very simple tent, and I'm going to have to get back to you on it because I can't.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's the traditional one is blue and gray, so people listening might know exactly what I'm talking about.
They're screaming at you right now.
And then my sleeping system, I use a Cedar Summit sleeping pad. It rolls up smaller than my Nalgene. And so that would be my insulation from the ground. And you blow it up. You can either manually or you can just let it autofill. And then I use a Goose Down dry Mountain Hardwear sleeping bag. It's rated to 15 degrees. I am the kind of person that can use that. Just being here in the mountains, I use a 15-degree bag pretty universally. Some people choose to go with a 30 in the summer and then a 0 in the winter, or less than 0 in the winter. But for whatever reason, the 15 degrees seems to work for me year round. And I might wear like my hat because I don't like to be sucked into my sleeping bag. That makes me feel claustrophobic.
Yeah, I'm a clothes in the sleeping bag kind of guy usually.
I think whatever keeps you warm, do it.
Yeah.
You just choose it and go with it.
Yeah.
I do keep my layers in my bag. I don't have my layers on, but I do keep my layers in my bag with me. So when I wake up in the morning, they're not freezing.
Yeah, that's a good idea for sure.
So when you do, say get to where you're going for the evening and you got your tent and everything set up, you kind of got your sleep system in order, it's time to make a warm, delicious meal and finally warm up after a long day. What are you doing for that?
Oh man, this is going to be such a boring response, but I'm a Mountain House gal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's too easy.
So it's just so easy, and comparatively they're lightweight. And for me, for better or worse, I'm an eater, so I can eat one of those by myself.
Oh yeah.
So it's super easy, contained, clean up, and so if I'm going out long term and I don't have the capacity to bring more just like odds and ends, like piecing together recipes, that's just an easy go-to for me. But I do, if I'm going on shorter, like I'd say like a 2, 3, maybe even a 4-night type excursion, I do a lot of pre-planning, and I have these little tiny containers that I like separate out all of my ingredients, and then I pre-plan, and usually that's a type of freeze dry. Like I make like a Thai curry and noodly carbohydrate based stuff that you can imagine one might make with hot water.
Sure.
yeah, for sure.
I think my favorite comfort food in the backcountry is taking a ramen pack and making it, not draining any of the water off of it after it's cooked, and then dumping dried mashed potatoes on it. It just makes this super yummy pot pie type thing that I find to be pretty easy and pretty yummy.
Yeah, sounds delicious. I found those Idahoan individual potato packs to be quite handy when you're talking about taking in some carbs and calories and stuff. So that's cool. What's your favorite flavor of Mountain House?
Macaroni and cheese. Pretty boring.
That's the staple. We've heard that a couple times. You know, it's just like, it's good. I'm a biscuits and gravy kind of guy myself. I don't know if it's that Southern roots thing or whatever, but man, biscuits and gravy is pretty hard to beat. It is
Sometimes
a little bit like
it just hits the spot.
It does. It does. It's good stuff. Cool. Well, if you had like one tip to someone who is trying to maybe take that next step and live like a night or two out of their backpack and try it out, what would be your tip for that?
Do your research and then just do it. Don't be scared.
I like it.
Because I think overthinking it, putting some effort and thought into it is essential, but overthinking it to the place of like, oh, this is too much, I'm never going to be able to do it, is just ruining your chance to do it. So I think that just jumping in and experience is the best teacher. So if you're thinking about it, go for it.
Awesome. Cool. That is some good advice there. Well, Katelyn, thank you so much. You're a wealth of information on this stuff, and we might just have to have you on the podcast again because you're pretty much a natural at this thing. So it might be hitting you up again one of these days, maybe to hear about how hunting season went for you. But if people want to learn more about you or ride for Red or maybe come see what your gym's all about there in Idaho, where can they find out more about you?
When I'm on social media, you can follow my handle. It's KBerm12. You'll see a random collection of things that I like to get out and do. And if you wanted to come visit Sun Valley, Idaho, I'll be at the Wood River Community YMCA climbing gym or at the fire station. So it's a great place to visit if you're feeling like it, exploring the mountains of Idaho.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we will link to that in the show notes below. And again, Katelyn, thanks so much, and good luck. Have fun this summer, and good luck in the woods this fall.
Great. Same to you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. See ya. Man, that was some killer info. If you found this interview helpful, be sure and leave us a review below and comment what you thought was the most helpful tip from this episode.
For sure. Make sure you also follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, and also subscribe on YouTube so you can see how these hunts turn out.
Remember, this is your element.
Live in it. Been waiting my whole life for that.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.